And so that's what she did. When she was finally freed from the concentration camp, she went from place to place to place, trying to rebuild broken Europe by teaching this message of mercy and forgiveness. And that's when she had a moment that she'll never forget. Because in one of the moments that she was teaching about this, she saw a dude in the back. And she recognized his face. And it was one of the guards at the concentration camp that she and her sister were at. And I want to tell you the rest of the story. The guard at the end of the talk actually walks up the aisle and looks at Corey and extended a hand to her. And this is what he said. He said, "You mentioned Ravensbrück in your talk," he was saying. "I was a guard there. He didn't remember me," Corey says, "but I remembered him. Since that time," this guard said, "I've become a Christian. I know that God has forgiven me the cruel things I did there, but I'd like to hear it from your lips as well. Fräulein," and again the hand came out, "will you forgive me?" I stood there, I whose sins had again and again been forgiven, and I couldn't forgive. Betsy had died in that place. Could he erase her slow, terrible death simply by asking? Couldn't have been many seconds that he stood there, hand held out, but to me it seemed hours as I wrestled with the most difficult thing I ever had to do. But I had to do it, I knew that. The message that God forgives has a condition that we forgive those who've injured us. If you don't forgive men their trespasses, Jesus says, neither will your Father in heaven forgive your trespasses. I knew it not only as a command of God, but as a daily experience. Since the end of the war, I'd gone home to Holland for victims of Nazi brutality. And those, watch this, she noticed this, those who were able to forgive their former enemies were also able to return to the outside world and rebuild their lives, no matter what their scars were. Those who had nursed their bitterness remained invalids. It was as simple and as horrible as that. And still I stood there with the coldness clutching my heart. But forgiveness is not an emotion. I knew that too. Forgiveness is an act of the will, and the will can function regardless of the temperature of the heart. Help, I prayed silently. I can lift my hand. I can do that much. God, you supply the feeling. And so woodenly, mechanically, I thrust my hand into the one outstretched to me, and as I did, an incredible thing took place. The current started in my shoulder, and it raced down my arm, and it sprang into our joined hands. And then this healing warmth seemed to flood my whole being, bringing tears into my eyes. I forgive you, brother, I cried, with all my heart. And for a long moment, we grasped each other's hands, the former guard and the former prisoner. She says, I'd never known God's love so intensely as I did in that moment. My question for you is this: who do you need to forgive? Is mercy the air you breathe? God has so much to give you if you'll become merciful too.